as I'm going down this journey and I'm looking for people that fit the books, and I restart reaching out to them and talking to them, I'm like, I'm loving this. This is awesome. Then as the chapters start coming in and people are turning in their chapters and I'm reading their chapters and I'm getting excited because I'm reading their stories. Some of them are just so like, oh my God, just heart-wrenching, but they've come out on the other side. And like, oh, I just love this part. This is so awesome. Then we get to the next part of creating the marketing materials. And I'm like, oh, I love this part. There's a point to this. Don't worry, I will get there. And then, as we're getting ready to launch the books is going to be in August, this month, we're going to be launching the books. Oh, I love this part. My point here is that I have spent many years trying to figure out what is something that I do that I absolutely love doing, that I can make a business out of it. And this is something that I love every single step of it. That's my point there, is that if we can find something that we absolutely love every step along the way, then we are living in our purpose. This is my true belief. So my purpose here is to help others, to share their story with their world, to get their voice out there, to be seen and be heard, something that I was missing in my life as a child. And so this is my mission, my passion. I absolutely love doing this. And this is what I'm doing now. So thanks, Sally, for asking the short question with the long answer.
So how many other jobs did you have before you figured this out? I've been doing this just since COVID. And everything just like evolves. Like I started out wanting to teach art classes, and then it was writing books, and now then it was coaching, and then it just keeps like, all right, well, maybe I can do this, and then I can do this, and sometimes it's just like there's so much going on, I just get dizzy. So I mean, how do you hone into the one thing? I mean, you found it, but is it just trial and error?
And it's taken a while for me. It doesn't take the same length of time for everybody, right? Because everybody's on a different journey. For me, it's been 6.5 years. But here's what I believe about it. I'm only going by my own experiences, of course. First of all, as you mentioned, jobs, I was in the corporate world for 36 years. I had 49 jobs in the corporate world. Yeah, I see MU's face. Yeah. So 49 jobs. I actually counted them one day because I was going to be doing a talk about getting back into the workforce. I don't know why I did that talk, but I was like, how many jobs did I have? So I did count them. So it's 49 jobs. And when I left the corporate world, it was like a caged animal that was released. And I had all these ideas. I mean, I put on food festivals. I did some speakers series where I brought in speakers to speak to organizations. I mean, I just did a whole bunch of different things. And I think that for my path, that was really necessary for me to like quickly get 6.5 years isn't really quick, right? But to quickly get to where I am today, because I had been in my mind caged up for so long doing what other people wanted me to do. So here I was for the first time in my life making my own decisions. Did I make bad decisions? Heck yeah, I made a lot of bad decisions. But guess what? They were my own decisions. I got to own it for myself and say, that was a bad decision, Lynda. What are you going to do to fix that? Or what are you going to do differently next time? So all of those bad decisions that I made along the way helped me to hone in on this one thing. Do we have to make bad decisions along the way to hone in on the one thing? No, absolutely not. But this is my journey. This is how it's happened, because I didn't want to listen to other people. I had been listening to people my whole life and following their lead. I was ready for the first time in my life to step into leadership. Now, I had been in leadership roles in the past, but I never felt like a leader. I felt like somebody kind of made me a leader. So this was different, a completely different mindset shift. My mindset has made so many different shifts along the journey in order to get to where I am today, right? So multi-passionate, Sally, you're multi-passionate. I'm a multi-passionate. I have a lot of different things I love doing. So what I did is I looked and I said, what are the different things, the aspects of what I'm doing that I absolutely love? I love bringing people together. I'm a community builder. So what can I do to make sure that I build community? right? I have to make sure I do that because otherwise I'm not going to enjoy what I'm doing and I have to enjoy it. So as far as that, the question goes, it's everybody's journey is completely different. You're going to have different experiences. You have different people in your life than I do, different patterns, different people that you're going to meet tomorrow than I do. Tomorrow, you're going to meet somebody else on maybe in Clubhouse or in Facebook or somewhere, and they're going to give you a great idea. Or you're going to hear something that they say and be like, ooh, I really resonate with that. And then the next thing you know, your mind's going to shift to a different rate, a different place. This doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. This just means that you're learning and growing. That's all it is. So I see this as growth, 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 until getting to that place of, here I am now that I'm incorporating all the things I absolutely love doing into the one thing. So how can we do that? Then to me, that's where the gold is. And I'm looking forward to the gold.
Well, one of the things I've heard you say a lot is that you faced a fear every day. And I know, did that come early in your entrepreneurial journey or at the beginning of this? And that was kind of what set this whole thing in motion?
Well, so in 2015, let me go back a little bit before that. It was in 2014 that I found my life coach. So that's what started everything. So I started working with her, and every week we would meet. And every week, different people would tell me, wow, you're different this week than you were last week. So I knew I was growing and changing. And then I finished working with her the end of November of 2014. And then I had December to myself. So here I was on this path. It was 5 months that I worked with her. I said 10 weeks. It was 5 months that I worked with her. So every week for 5 months, I was changing and growing and learning so much about myself. So I had 1 month by myself, and I didn't make hardly as much growth as I had the previous 5 months. And I had gotten addicted to it, like addicted to the change, the growth, the becoming a better person, becoming a positive person. I mean, I had been very negative and judgmental most of my life. So I was changing into this new person, this person that I was starting to actually love for the first time ever. And January 1st of 2015, so a month without my life coach, very little growth. January 1st, 2015, I wake up and I say, I'm going to face a fear every day this year. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just going to face a fear every day. So what I did is every single morning for 365 days, the first thing I would do when I woke up, before I even got out of bed, just ask myself one simple question: what scares me? And then I would lay in bed and I would wait until the answer came. Whatever that first fear was that popped into my head, my commitment, this wasn't a New Year's resolution. This was a commitment to myself, a commitment to change. And that first thing that popped into my head was the fear I had to face that day. I was not going to make it through the day until I faced that fear. This was my commitment to myself. So the entrepreneurial journey actually started a little bit before that, because that was about November of 2014. And then like a month later, I'm facing a fear every day. And it was just, nothing scary. Like I didn't jump out of any planes, bungee jump. I didn't eat any bugs. I didn't do anything like that.
Share some of the fears that you faced?
Yeah. So my fears were probably the vast majority of them were based on the fear of judgment. What are people going to think of me? What are people going to say about me? What are they going to talk about me behind my back? And as I look back on that, I realized that those were great fears of mine, because I was that person that was talking about people behind their back. I was the person who was judging people for the littlest of things. I used to pick up the People magazine and talk about all those stars, like, just negative things. This was my life. This was who I was. That was who I was. I am not that person anymore at all. Like now, when I even start to think anything like that, I catch myself immediately because I feel it in my body. So some of the fears, one of my favorites that I love to tell, because it's so ridiculous when you look at it, but for me, it was real. Like your fears are as real as can be, no matter how ridiculous they may seem to somebody else, that your fears are real. And this particular fear, it was very specific. I was laying there and what scares me? And I'm laying there, and to talk to a stranger in a Starbucks, like that was very specific. And so my mission that day was to go to a Starbucks and talk to a stranger. Now, it seems like a harmless thing to do, but I was terrified because I didn't like to start conversations. And a lot of my fear of judgment stemmed from my childhood, being called names a lot. Sally, I know that you were bullied as a kid, and being called names. And my first husband told me I was stupid and ignorant on a daily basis. He didn't just tell me, he yelled it at me every day for over 2 years. And I believed those people. So here I was on this fearless, journey, right? Facing fear every single day. And I had this fear of talking to a human being. That was one of my biggest fears. So anyway, I showed up at the Starbucks, and I'm standing there looking around, and like everybody's paired up with somebody. So the thing was to talk to a stranger, not a group of strangers, a stranger. And I waited and waited for about 5 minutes when some guy walked in, and I looked and I was like, oh my God, there he is. And I was so scared, but there he was, my victim of the day, and he ordered his coffee and sat down. And I was like, okay, there he is. I'll wait till he gets his coffee, because he had to wait for it. And then he went and sat back down. So I walked over to him and I said, hi, sir, I'm facing a fear every day this year. And one of my fears is talk to a stranger in a Starbucks. Do you mind if I have a seat? And he said, yeah, go ahead, whatever. He was like, who is this weirdo? And so I sat down, and I think we talked for maybe 5 minutes or so. And then I got up, I thanked him, and I walked out. I faced that fear, and I felt like throwing up. I didn't, but I felt like it. My stomach was in knots that I had done that. But it was necessary for me to get to where I am today, right? Sometimes we have to face these extremely uncomfortable situations. And again, my fears are my fears, and they are as real as can be. People tell us like false evidence appearing real. No, my fears don't just appear real, they are real to me. And so that was something that I had to realize, that my fears are real to me, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous they are to somebody else, because they are real. So it's just a matter of breaking through them. And each time I broke through a fear, it's like, remember back to the day when you first started driving a car, and you were like, I got to do 10 and 2. I got to keep my eyes on the road at 100 feet away from the intersection. I got to turn the blinker on. Like, you have all these different things going on in your head that you have to do. And it's a little scary and nerve wracking. Well, now you just get behind the wheel of a car. You probably eat a hamburger while you're driving, or, putting on some makeup while you're driving. It's not scary anymore. So it's the same thing as I was experiencing by talking to people. So now I walk up to people, and I don't have any fear over it anymore. Sometimes it gives me a little bit, but for the most part, I just walk up to people. It looks natural for me. It was never natural until now, until I started doing it on a regular basis. So that was my favorite fear. Some of the other ones, I don't even remember a lot of them now, because they're just kind of like a distant past for me, 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're working on now that's exciting for you, that you're excited
Oh,
about?
well, super excited first is, doing the collaboration books. That's very exciting for me, because again, I get to bring together people. I love, bringing people together and helping them to share their voice with the world. Many people in the books that I'm writing have never published their words before. I've had some of them reach out to me and say, this is more than just a book. Like, you're changing my life, because I'm sharing my story. And so that for me is like, there's nothing like that, is to be able to be part of this planet where you're, providing that tremendous value for people, and then for them to share their stories. And, hopefully their stories, when people read them, they hear that they're able to make some sort of transformation in their own life. So that's one thing, is the collaboration books. Then I'm also collaborating. Well, Sally and I are collaborating on something right now. We don't have it all together yet, but there's the thing is, when we reach out to people who resonate with us in one way, shape, or form, and we can create something together. I mean, how exciting is that? Because now you're not doing it alone. You're combining forces, you're combining your brains, you're able to make something happen. So Sally and I are working on something. And then another thing that I'm working on is with this woman that I know named Crystal. We're going to be doing these like media gatherings, where we bring people together. We teach them how to speak on stage. They get up and they actually speak on stage. We videotape the whole thing. And then we also do like these fancy photo shoots. But here's the cool part about it. I mean, the whole thing's cool, but the coolest part is we're doing these in castles. And I'm so excited to do our first one. We're looking at April of next year, because we don't know what's happening with the Delta variant of COVID, so we're not really sure exactly the dates yet. But it just, again, when I met Crystal a couple of years ago, I met Sally only like a year and a half ago, maybe. And when we come together again, finding people that we can collaborate on, because of, like, I have my genius zone and they have their genius zone, then you bring them both together and you can just create so much amazing projects out there. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your networking events too, that you do these on
Oh
every
yeah.
other Saturday, and you have speakers come in, and that's I attend these, and they're just so much fun. How did all that get started, and how do you find the speakers and stuff to come on there?
Yeah, it's called Women Action Takers Network, and I know Amy's been there before, and Sally. And originally, the Women Action Takers networking events were held in person. I'm in San Diego, California. We held them in person, and I never thought about doing them on Zoom until COVID hit, and we were like forced to either stop what we were doing or to move it to Zoom. So I moved it to Zoom, and I remember that very first meeting, there were about 60 women who showed up. People were hungry to still be able to be around people, right? And they were like, oh, I'm going to show up at that meeting. And the thing that I like to do a little bit differently with most of my events is, instead of asking the typical, do your 30-second pitch, and share that with everybody, is I like to ask some kind of like thought-provoking question that gets everybody just thinking about something different. And then also I find that that makes it so that, I see a lot of people shaking their heads because they're listening. What is this person going to say about this topic, And so we're actually listening. Whereas, I don't know about you, but in the 30-second commercials, I tend to tune out because it's not, everybody's like saying the same thing to me. I just feel like the Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 it's kind of how I feel sometimes. I'm just telling the truth. It's like how I see it. So I wanted to create something a little bit different. And then also this next one coming up, August 14th, I have a billionaire who is going to become, is going to come and speak to us. And Sally asked the question, how do you get these guests? So I've been very fortunate because of my journey of, putting myself out there and facing those fears every day, by the way, really is what set in motion almost everything I'm doing today, because of the people that I've met by doing that. But I had the pleasure of interviewing the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, in his presidential suite when he was in San Diego. I've interviewed stars on the red carpet. And through this journey, I've met a really, just a lot of people who are doing really big things in the world. And I've had these amazing opportunities. One of those is that I'm an executive producer for a film called Wishman. And that's the story of the founding of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. To just be part of that project was an incredible opportunity for me. And I jumped at it. I didn't let it scare me. I jumped to it, jumped through the fear. And so this billionaire, for example, that I have coming to speak August 14th, I literally just reached out to him. And here's the thing, here's the key to that kind of thing, is to meet them where their heart is. Not meet them where their pocketbook is, but meet them where their heart is. Somebody who has $1 billion doesn't need more money. They have a mission, and their mission is whatever their mission is. So this gentleman, he has a nonprofit that helps children get into entrepreneurship. And so what I did is, when I reached out to him, I reached out and I mentioned that the children, entrepreneurship. I started at 51. I wish that I had had somebody like you to guide me when I was younger, that kind of thing. And it's real. Like, this is really how I feel. And so it's just like knowing where their heart is and reaching them there is really that key. And so I don't know who else I have coming up, but there'll be some, I'm getting less and less scared to actually reach out. And I think that's one of the keys there, is if he never responded, I would have been okay. I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But he did respond. He said, yes, let's get me on the calendar. And I said, okay, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And so it's happening,
That's great. You want to share maybe a little bit about maybe some of the people that you've met? I know you've told the Jack Canfield story.
Oh yeah, I haven't told it here, but yeah, yeah,
before.
let me tell. Yeah,
But I would love for them to hear that.
Yeah. So do you know who Jack Canfield is? He's He's co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and they've sold over 500 million copies. They're on their way to 1 billion. I think they've sold 600 million now, but they're on their way to 1 billion, and that is their goal, is to sell 1 billion copies. I had this honor and pleasure to be able to interview stars on a red carpet, and it was after it's like the Academy Awards, and then there's the after party has a red carpet, and I showed up at the event about 1:30, something like that. And when I showed up, they were on a lunch break, and because there's a daytime event and then it goes to the nighttime, the red carpet. And so I showed up about 1:30. They were all on a lunch break except for Jack Canfield, and he was having a conversation with 3 people. And I walked in, I was like, oh my God, that's Jack Canfield. I'm gonna get a picture with him. I'm so excited. I couldn't wait, because I had read a lot of his books, and I had read his book called The Success Principles, which if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a great read, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. But I was starstruck. There he was, Jack Canfield. And I just wanted to get a picture with him. So I waited patiently, and they talked for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. It could have been 1 minute, but for me, it seemed like 5 or 10 minutes. And when they were done, the 3 people turned around and walked away. Like they walked away from me. And then Jack just happened to turn around, walk toward me, because I was by the exit door. And he said out loud, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get some lunch. And I said, oh, I just grabbed his arm and I said, oh, I'll take you to lunch, like that. And he goes, okay, where are we going to go? So I took Jack Canfield to lunch, and it was really interesting, because what happened on our way to lunch was something that really changed my thoughts about how I was going to have a conversation with him. Because as we were walking to lunch, it was about, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile away. We were at Universal Studios, and the food area was about a quarter mile away. And every single person knew who he was. Like, he was recognizable for sure. And every single person, Jack, can I get a picture with you? Jack, can I get your autograph? Jack, can you look at this product I have? Jack, can you write the foreword of my book? Everybody wanted a piece of him. So one thing I saw there was what it's like to be a celebrity. And I got to tell you, it's not all that cool, because everybody wants a piece of them. So, and there was actually somebody who said, is that your wife? And he said, yes. I thought we were both just like cracking up, And I said to him, I'm going to be your paparazzi holder or whatever, it's a handler, so that you don't get all these paparazzi. And I just kept on talking about, he'll see you after lunch. He'll see you after lunch, like this, I just kept like dismissing everybody. But we got to lunch, and we chose a Mexican restaurant. We sat down, and the very first thing I said to him is, I am not here to take anything from you or to ask anything of you. I'm here just to be in your presence. And what I saw from him in that moment was like this tremendous, like, how you can see the sigh of relief that just washes over a person's body, their face. That's what happened. I'm sure that he anticipated that I was going to be asking him all these questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? But I didn't. So we just had a conversation, and we were at lunch for 2 hours. 2 hours, Jack Canfield and me, Mexican restaurant, $38. I said, I'm paying for your lunch. That's the least I can do. And so what was cool is when we got back to the venue, and we were just walking up, talking, and I had some friends, and they were like, you're with Jack Canfield? I'm like, oh yeah, we just went to lunch. Like, it was no big deal. And then later that night, I was talking to another friend. They said, did you know that 2 people bid, because there's like an auction that they do at this event, 2 people bid on lunch with Jack Canfield, $14,000 each. And I was like, I paid $38 and I got 2 hours, and it was just so awesome. So later that night, I'm on the red carpet, and I see Jack coming down the carpet, just like there's a huge line of stars coming down, right? And I see Jack, and he walks and he yells out loud, hey, there's Lynda, my lunch buddy. And people were looking like, Jack, because they know, the people knew me, my friends and stuff that were there, and like, how do you know him? Oh yeah, we go way back, at least 4 hours. And so when I interviewed him at the very end, I did something that it just snapped in me. I was like, I'm going to ask this question, and I said, Jack, tell everybody what you love about me. And so he gave me a testimonial, not even realizing that he was giving me one, but he gave me this awesome testimonial about how cool I am and all this good stuff about me. And, I kept seeing him at different events, and he remembered me. And I just thought that for me, that was really, really awesome, that this man who I've seen on stage speak many, many times. I got to tell you, he's even nicer in person than he is on the stage. And he is a real, genuine, raw person. And I'm just so glad I got to meet him, because I got to see what it's like behind the scenes when you're popular or when you're famous. And it's not all that cool, and I don't know if I want to be like that when I'm out in public. If it happens, I'll be happy. But if it doesn't happen, I'll be happy too.
Thanks. That's one of my favorite stories. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm
You're
gonna
welcome.
open it up and see if Rami or Chris or Amy have any questions you want to ask of Lynda. Just feel free to open up your mic and even just to say hello. And
hi, Lynda.
Rami, hello.
Hi, that was a great story.
Thank you.
Good to hear how you just overcame your insecurities to really build this success. I'm following that and plan on following you.
Well, thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. It's interesting because we face forks in the road all the time, right? We talk about the proverbial fork in the road. And, I had a choice. And it was interesting as looking back just at that one little story, the Jack Canfield story, the Lynda previously, prior to that, prior to this journey that I've been on, would have said, oh, he wants to go eat lunch. Maybe I'll be able to get him later. That would have been what I would have done previously. Self-deprecating, right? Why would he want to spend time with me? This kind of stuff that, went through my head. Yeah. And so it's cool because I didn't do that. I just said, this is what I want and I'm going to go get it. I'll share another really quick story, Sally. I don't know if you ever heard this one about my interview. I interviewed Wesley Snipes on the red carpet, the American actor. Yeah. So you haven't heard this one, Sally?
no, I haven't.
Yeah. So this will be short. I'll tell it shorter. Sometimes I know my stories can be too long.
Go for it.
So
here.
Okay. So we were on the red carpet and there were a lot of us and we were even like 3 deep. And I got there early enough that I was stuck, what do you call it? Staked my claim, my spot on the floor, because like literally you are sideways, everybody's sideways trying to get their chance to interview these stars. And so I staked my claim and I stood there. There was one lady that kept trying to push me out of the way and she was tall. And I was like, gosh, I'm here. This is my spot. I claimed this early, And so anyway, I saw Wesley Snipes and I had one goal that night, and that was to interview Wesley Snipes. I didn't care about any other of the stars that were going down there. It was Wesley Snipes. So I had my sights on that. And so I saw him and there he was about 3 people away from me and I'm getting a little antsy. Okay, there he is. He's going to come by. It's going to be my turn, and all this stuff. Awesome. Alvin, we're going to interview Wesley Snipes. This is so cool. Awesome. Let's go. And then he walked right on past me and he kept on going and he walked to like 3 people on the other side of me. So he skipped me, just walked right on past like me. He skipped me and the other people that I was next to. And then, so he's being interviewed by that person about 3 people away from me. And they were, I want to say from me to, again, we're standing sideways, right? So it's 3 people sideways. So I don't know, probably a good 4 feet away from me. And I was bound and determined I was going to interview him. That was what I wanted to do. And so I looked at Alvin. He's my videographer, by the way. I looked at him and I said, Alvin, we are getting Wesley Snipes. Like that. I just looked at it like I was determined this was going to happen. So I looked at everything. I watched the body language. I watched the mouths moving. I watched I heard every single word that they were saying. And I was listening and watching for all the clues that they were done. And like nothing else was happening in the room. It was just me and Wesley Snipes. I was in that zone. And so finally they did that very last, like he was getting ready to turn to go down and probably 6 more people. And I just took his elbow, I just touched it like that. I didn't grab it. I just touched it. And I said, Mr. Snipes, it's my turn. And I guided him back over to me and I interviewed him. If I hadn't done that, if I didn't have that desire, which, in the Napoleon Hill book, Think and Grow Rich, Sally and I are going to be doing a series on Think and Grow Rich for women. One of the chapters is on desire. If my desire wasn't a burning desire that I was going to get this no matter what, I would have let that go. But I had my sights set on something that I wanted. And so I made it happen. I literally made it happen because I pulled him over and he goes, okay, he didn't care who interviewed him. He was going to be interviewed no matter what. So it didn't matter who. So
Right.
I just pulled him over because I knew what I wanted and I was going to get it. And guess what? I got it. I was done. After that, I was like, we're done for the night. I don't even need any more interviews because I got what I wanted, you know?
Wesley, good for you.
Thank you. That was a fun one. It was scary at the time because I didn't think it was going to happen, but it was, but it happened.
You made it happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to. Sometimes we have to, I don't say like force it, but guide it, I guess, because that's really all I was doing. I wasn't forcing anything. I literally guided him. I didn't beat up anybody. There was a guy though, he's like, I'm 5'3", and there was this guy there that I've seen him at different events and stuff. And he's very forceful, very pushy. And he said, I'll get him over here. I'll get him over here. And I looked and I said, I'll get him over here. I just looked up at him and I got him over there because I wasn't going to let my fate be determined by somebody else's actions.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been the gentleman and said, okay, you bring him over here. You know, you're the tall guy. You're the man. You bring him over. But I didn't want my fate to be determined based on somebody else's actions. And that was really important for me to, again, step into my bravery, right? Step into who I am and what I'm all about. And that was just another example of me actually doing that and not letting any fear get in the way and just moving forward and doing it, you know. But we all have that ability.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm sorry that I missed the first part of your talk. I'll be able to play the replay, I believe, because I'd like to hear more. I'm interested in doing some public speaking and doing some writing about my stories. So I'd like
Fantastic.
to follow that. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, it's available on YouTube on Self-Care Rockstar. I'm seeing it right there, right now.
Very good.
I have a question for you, Lynda. So
Amy.
I really can relate with how you talked about fear and people pleasing and things like that. So I have seen as I've grown my own walk that like things get at a deeper and deeper and deeper level. How did you keep going in that 1 year facing fears? Because a lot of times I see how things come back around, and maybe the awareness is faster, but I think that took a lot of persistence for you, persistent, continuous act, but how did you keep going? Because I'm sure there was things that you came up and you're like, well, I thought I dealt with that, but then it came up again.
Oh, it's a great question, Amy, because even though it was 365 days of facing different fears, a lot of them were similar. You know, they weren't the exact same scenario. And I didn't realize it until I looked back and said, oh, how do these all kind of like tie together? These are all, centered around that fear of judgment, which the fear of judgment is the number one fear. They say more people are scared of speaking on stage than they are of dying. That's not true. The truth is that they're afraid of the judgment that they'll get on stage, not of the speaking on stage, the judgment that'll be passed down. And I was no different. Judgment was my biggest fear. Probably 98% of those fears were judgment related. So you asking that question, here's what was cool about it is as I was, facing a different fear every single day in a different scenario, a lot of them were networking events, approaching two people or, having a conversation or getting business cards, they're kind of silly when I look back at them, but they were so real for me. And so because they were, sort of like interrelated, the same type of fears, what happened is I like to call it like I enlarged the size of my comfort zone. So every time I step out, you know how you blow up a balloon, the first time it's a little hard and then you let the air out and the next time you blow it up, it's a little bit easier. This is how I like to equate the comfort zone to, is that it enlarges, then it retracts, and then it gets bigger, and then it just keeps getting bigger, but retracts still along the journey, but then it continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's what happened for me, is that every time I broke through another fear, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can keep going. And again, mine was a commitment. This was a commitment to myself, 365 fears. And so I didn't even know that I, had that many fears.
That many fears.
but I kind of assumed I did because I let fear stop me from living my life for far too long, far too long. And so, to answer that question is how did I keep going? It was that my commitment, it was just a commitment, and commitment to me, commitment to nobody else. Because when we make commitments to other people, it's a lot easier for us to break them because we don't really have a buy-in, like this was a buy-in for me to change my life. And I wanted it so desperately. And that's how I did it, is just to keep going. I don't want to be the way I was forever. And during this process, it was kind of interesting is my family, my sisters decided that they needed to talk to me. So I was changing drastically and fast, right? We need to talk to you. Okay. Like I didn't think anything of it. They're like, we think you're in a cult and we're worried about you. They don't have your best interest at heart. And the people they were talking to at the time was not the business cult that I mentioned earlier, because this was before the business cult. But the people they were talking about were the founder of UGG Boots, the founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the inventor of the credit card magnetic strip. They were talking about people who were actually making a difference on this planet. But they were scared because I was no longer the Lynda who was scared, the Lynda who wouldn't do anything, the Lynda who would sit back and ask everybody for approval before she did anything, and they were scared because I was changing. So it's kind of interesting. I actually ostracized myself from the family for a year because I realized that their judgment on me of what I was doing was really hard for me to break through. So I decided that I wasn't going to see them until I was ready. So what I told them is I have to build my foundation. My foundation of who I am has to be so strong that no matter what you say, you can't knock me off of it. And it took a year. I didn't know how long it would take. I could have done 10 years, but it was a year, and it was Thanksgiving. And I called up my oldest sister. I said, I'm ready to see you guys now if you want to have me. And she said, of course, of course. So when I showed up for Thanksgiving, I told my husband, I said, if they make any judgmental comments, I'm out of there. You can either leave with me or I can come pick you back up, And he's like, okay. So we went there, and I was really looking for that. I was searching for the judgment. And my sister was very well behaved that day. It was so interesting. And there was one thing she started to say, and it was about her own son. And it was just like derogatory. And I was getting ready to get up and leave. And then she changed the subject. So it was really interesting. The first time in my life that I didn't feel that judgment from my sister. But she still judges me today. That was like one instance, but it's just that, that drive and desire to change, that drive and desire to say, this is not my life. This isn't the life I really want to live. This isn't the life I signed up for. I want a different life. And it should change. We can do that. It can be scary. Yes. But also having the supportive people in your life, like Sally is an amazing support person for sure. And, the people that I've
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's amazing. But just the people that I've been surrounded by, those are the people that have helped me to keep that grounding and to keep my belief in myself. If I relied on my family for that, my husband is amazing. He absolutely adores me, but other than that, the rest of my family, not so much. So I don't rely on them for that. I now rely on myself.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. That was really good.
You're
And
welcome.
I have another question that interesting. So the business cult, what are the red flags or the things that we can be, I've never heard that terminology before, but I can definitely see how that could happen. So what kind of awareness should we have to make sure we don't fall into something like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What's interesting about that is my husband recognized that there was something amiss from it, and that it was probably a cult. He mentioned it to me. One of his friends mentioned it to him, and he told me that his friend. So I'm like, these people are seeing it from the outside, and the inside, I'm living it, right? So when you're in that kind of situation, you might not realize what's going on because everything seems so perfect. Everything seems so right. They seem to be helping you with everything. And this is what they were doing is they were going to, the promise when I joined it, I didn't know I was joining a cult. It's not like, oh, I want to join this cult. Oh, cool. No, it was a mastermind program. And when I joined it, they said, we can help you become a millionaire in a year. So first of all, that was like probably one of the first red flags that I should have had up, because who can make that promise and really deliver? Right. So that was one of the first things. And then here's the thing. Don't ever, here's my recommendation. Don't ever make a decision, especially if it's like that was about $10,000. Don't ever make a decision from a place of desperation. So cults prey on people who are desperate. And I was extremely desperate at that time. Why? Because I had been in corporate for 36 years. I had 49 jobs. I had no pension. I had no retirement. When you have 49 jobs, you don't build up a retirement. So I didn't have any of that stuff. When I left my corporate job and started my entrepreneurial journey, my husband and I, we sold my childhood home. We downsized. We bought a 28-foot fifth wheel trailer. We became campground hosts so we wouldn't have any rent, so that we could make the money, the sale from the house, so we could make it last as long as possible. Well, I was going through that money on my journey, learning and growing, joining different mastermind programs, joining all these, buying everything that was out there because I needed to learn it all today, you know? And so what happened is by the time I met that group of people, I was at a place where the money was going down and down and down, and I almost didn't have any left anymore. And I said, I can come up with this 10,000. I could do that because they're going to make me a millionaire. Well, I was desperate. So that's the first thing, is to, again, never make a decision when you're in a place of desperation, because people will prey on that. And he recognized that and he preyed on that. So then they get you into their clutches, and the clutches are like helping you with this and that and all these other things, but you're not moving forward. I wasn't moving forward. And if I had really looked at it, I would have seen that nobody else in the program was moving forward either, that nobody else in the program was a millionaire, that nobody else in the program was making any money. The only people that were making any money in the program, in this particular one, were the ones who were working for the founder of the mastermind. And he was paying them like $13 an hour, and minimum wage was 14 in San Diego at the time. So it's just like there were these different signs, but I ignored them because I was desperate.
Yeah.
So when my husband said, that's a cult, I'm like, no, it's not. I defended them because I so desperately wanted it to not be. I didn't want to make that wrong. I didn't want to, because I made the decision. It was my decision. And I didn't want to be wrong. But I was. My husband was right.
So
What advice do you have for breaking the people-pleasing cycles?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Let me give me a second here. I want to make sure I answer this. That's not correctly like the right answer, but from my heart, because that was a big one for me. You know, that people pleasing. It was through that fear of judgment. It was really breaking through the fear of judgment that helped me to break the people pleasing cycle. Now, with that said, I still dip back into that every once in a while. But the difference, like Amy mentioned awareness earlier, right? When we have awareness that we're doing something is when we can make a change. So if you think about with people pleasing in any situation that you're having, and you feel like you can feel it in your body. Oh, I don't really want to do this, but, right? If you're having that big but show up, realize that you just need to stand for yourself. Here's the important piece from my perspective of that people pleasing, and to break it is I like to say, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. So if you're not standing for something that you believe in, what do you truly believe in? So until you know what that is, like with my family, I didn't know what that was for so many decades because I was a people pleaser. I was always wanting to do what they wanted, or what I thought they wanted me to do. Really, it's what I thought they wanted me to do. And I didn't stand for anything. So now when you move into this place of what are my beliefs? What do I truly, truly believe in? And I remember a time that the judgment thing showed up one day. It was way after my facing a fear. And I run these masterminds, and Sally is in my mastermind program. And I was running one of the masterminds, and I realized that what I was doing is I would only run the mastermind when my husband wasn't around, because I didn't want him to hear the words I was saying to the ladies, because what if he judged me? This is my husband, who's extremely supportive. He's always telling me how brave I am, how smart I am, all these things, but I still had this fear of judgment. So one day I said to myself, okay, what would happen if I go ahead and run the mastermind and he can hear me? It seems so simple, but it was a big deal to me. And so I said, I'm going to run it. I'm just going to, he's over there, like he's 10 feet away from me. I'm just going to run my mastermind right here. And I did it. And after I was done, guess what? He said, wow, that advice you give those ladies, that's amazing. You're doing such great work. I had never given him the opportunity to say that to me, but I'm sharing that because it was my fear of judgment. And I wanted to make sure, again, like related to the people pleasing, is I wanted to make sure I didn't say anything that would go against what he believed. So when I showed up to my mastermind, I always wanted to show up as me 100%. And I couldn't do that with him being 10 feet away from me, because I was so fearful of his judgment of me, which wasn't even existent. So really, it's about stepping in and saying, this is who I am. These are my beliefs. Love me or leave me. Either way, I'm still me. And then see what happens. Is it scary? Yeah.
That's the part
But-
where like guilt sets in. I can
And
do the
guilt is-
first
oh my
part
gosh,
and then,
yeah.
and then the guilt sets in, and then I'm like, okay. Then I end up doing what I just said I wasn't going to do.
What would
And then I go in this
happen?
circle.
So yeah, what would happen if the guilt set in and then you say, that's guilt. I don't have any place for that. It doesn't have any place in my life. And then you just kept going on. Now think about this. What would happen if the guilt set in and then you said, I'm not going to do what I would, my normal pattern would be, here's guilt and I need to fix it, right? What would happen is if guilt set in and you said, my new pattern is that I'm going to let the guilt disappear, because it will. It will. The thing is that you haven't experienced that yet. So if you think about it, a situation that happens right now in this moment, that you like let it play out a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, is that situation, that experience that you had right now, is it still affecting your life in 3 weeks from now in a bad way? And if it
Probably
isn't,
not.
yeah, see, so it's really, it's an exercise. It's a different kind of exercise. It's a mindset exercise, not a body exercise, right? It's not an exercise of staying away from the cookies. This is an exercise of standing up for yourself so that you have the power, because you have this power. It's just tapping into it and believing that what I'm doing, here's another thing I like to say, is that every decision we make in life, it was right for us in that exact moment. So if right for you means going back and fixing the thing that you feel guilty about, if that's right for you, that's what you're going to do. But if you are tired of that, it's not right for you anymore. And you have the power to stand up and say, here I am. This is what I'm all about. And you know what? My husband is very, I love to use him as examples because we're completely opposites of each other. He's very, like, everything has to be done like right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, we'll get it done next week, or, whatever. It doesn't faze me either way. And he'll be over there rushing around. And the old me, or the young me, used to, I got to get up and I got to help him. I got to make sure that I get over there, because if I don't do that, then I'm going to feel guilty about not helping him. And he's going to be mad at me, and he's going to think that I this and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff going on in my head. So when I started exercising my letting him be himself and letting me be myself, what happened is I'll see him running around and all this stuff, and I'm just sitting here just doing my thing. That's right. I hope he's okay over there. It used to be, do you need my help? Do you need me to help you with anything? I wanted to make sure that he was okay. And he was okay without me helping him. But it was like one little thing to exercise. So what I do is I find little tidbits of things that I can exercise. What's something that's really, like, if you're thinking about this whole guilt picture, right? It's big, right? The guilt picture is huge. What's one little thing in that guilt scenario that you can practice doing differently. Just one thing. It doesn't have to be drastic. Just think about that and just practice that one thing. And when you get really good at that, pick another thing. And then eventually you'll get better and better. And eventually you'll have a different exercise. It's no longer the guilt exercise. It's the empowerment exercise. It's a completely different exercise. I'm going to call it that, Sally, the empowerment exercise.
You know.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm
Was that
gonna
helpful,
try
Chrissy?
this. Yeah. Right now, I'm
Awesome.
just trying to determine, is this my guilt or is it somebody else's guilt they're trying to project onto me?
Ooh, and now
So-
here's the thing. Nobody can direct any guilt on you.
Yes, but then like, why do we let them? So yeah,
That's
that's
it.
my,
That's we're letting them.
yeah.
And that's the key, right? So now that you have awareness, again, awareness is where everything starts. So now you have this awareness. So what are you going to do about that? So you say, oh, I'm starting to feel guilty. I'm aware I'm feeling guilty. What am I going to do about it this time? What exercise am I going to do differently than I've done in the past? Now, what happens is people will get like, she's different. She's not doing what she normally does, and they're going to eventually get used to it, that's your new normal. And your new normal becomes their new normal because now they're used to you setting boundaries and actually upholding them. They're used to you saying no and actually mean no. You saying yes and actually meaning yes. You saying maybe and then making a decision. They'll get used to it. They might not like it, but they'll get used to it. What's
Okay, that's what I
important is
need
for
to
you
practice.
yeah. Yeah, just practice, pick one little thing and just practice that one thing and see how good you feel about that. It might not feel good the first time or the second or the fifth or the 10th, but eventually you will, because you're stepping into your own brilliance and your own power. You got this.
Great.
Well, thank you, Lynda, for being here tonight. I want to thank you all for coming. It's been a great show tonight, and I think we're done.
Thank you, everybody. I
Well,
don't normally
thanks,
wear
Sally.
pink, and I see Romy's wearing pink and Sally's wearing a pinkish. So I'm glad I wore my pink because I wore the uniform of the day.